WHEC-TV, proudly serving Rochester. News 10 NBC starts right now.
The worst of the winds are over, but they've left thousands without power across the area.
And a storm later this week could make for another messy commute. Let's head right on over to Chief Meteorologist Kevin Williams for the latest track on this winter storm this week.
Kevin, anything to worry about for the drive-in tomorrow?
No, not really, unless there's a couple of downed trees and power lines, which could certainly be an issue from the winds we've seen. And it's still be windy overnight. Just the worst of the winds are slackening. These are the peak gusts in our area, guys. There are dozens and dozens of weatherbug stations. Avon, Hilton, Retzoff, Newark, a pretty good spread there from between 48 and 55 miles an hour. That tells us that everybody was in on the winds. And they're still strong now, but the peak is just passing. But they'll still be very busy overnight, still very noisy for some overnight. Live Doppler 10 shows most of those showers of rain, ice pellets, and snow have ended. But again, we still have those winds coming in very briskly out of the northwest. And that'll be the story through the overnight and early morning hours. So again, you might find a little debris if you're out there in the country, especially on those country lanes. Watch for a little bit of debris, a down tree limb or power line. Not out of the question, so always be cautious in that regard. Tomorrow, otherwise, much less wind, a rather cloudy day. Temperatures reach the low 30s. Winds will actually turn into the northeast late and start to freshen. Now, guys, important information on that system for Wednesday. First of all, compared to what we saw a couple weeks ago, I wouldn't even use the word storm. And the new data in has shifted the track, and I'm seeing a lot of signs of a slightly different track. We'll talk about the implications on that potentially messy morning commute on Wednesday coming up. So don't go away. We'll talk about that with important information in just a little bit.
All right, Kevin, thank you. RG&E says high winds may be to blame for more than 8,000 power outages across the area tonight. About 3,500 of those have been restored. Most of the impacted customers are in Ontario and Wayne counties, particularly Canandaigua and Sodus. RG&E says crews are working on finding the issues, and there's no timetable on when it will be fixed. Two Livingston County parents are accused of locking their 4-year-old daughter in her bedroom for days.
Police say the girl wasn't allowed out of her room even to go to the bathroom. Mikhail and Cody McLean are charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Lynette Adams is live in Mount Morris tonight with reaction from people who live nearby. But first, Lynette, how did police find out about this?
Well, police tell us a family member blew the whistle on Mikhail and Cody McLean. And police also tell us that the children were initially removed from the parents' home, but today were returned to them. We wanted to ask the McLeans about the allegations against them, so we went to their house. It appeared someone may be home at this house on Eagle Street in Mount Morris, but no one answered the door. This is where police say Mikhail and Cody McLean live with their 4-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son. It's also where police say they punished the 4-year-old by locking her in her room for days at a time, not even letting her out to use the bathroom, and leaving feces and urine in the room for periods of time. Neighbors like Selena Powell could hardly find the words to express her outrage.
They're innocent, you know? Why would you do that?
Shocking, is it?
Absolutely. Like, unbelievable. Like, unconscionable.
Powell and her fiancé have lived here for 2 years. She was shocked to learn the couple has children.
I actually saw them. I honestly didn't even know for a fact that they had kids.
The Mount Morris police officer who made the arrest said the 4-year-old was, quote, locked in a room periodically. This was not a one-time occurrence. She continued saying the child appeared to have special needs and needed more attention than the parents knew how to give. End of quote. These allegations are upsetting even for people who don't know the McLeans.
It's still shocking, and it's terrible that it happened.
Neighbors Vince Levy and his wife say they've seen a constant stream of cars stopping at the McLean's house. Sometimes it's been the police.
I hope they throw the book at them. Shouldn't be allowed to happen. I don't like seeing the change come on our street.
Now, the McLeans have been accused of not providing adequate medical care for the 4-year-old. Police did tell me today that it didn't appear that the 4-year-old had been physically abused. The McLeans have been issued an appearance ticket for village court for endangering the welfare of a child.
Well, Lynette, do we know why the children were returned to their parents?
Well, we tried to get that answer tonight. We were promised a call back when we placed a call to the Livingston County District Attorney's Office to learn more about this case and to ask that question specifically. We're still waiting for a call back.
All right, Lynette Adams live in Mount Morris tonight. Thank you.
Now to a New York State Exposed education follow-up. For months, we brought you stories of students angry with rising tuition costs at state universities. Now protests are planned for this week with another tuition hike expected. Chris Horvitz heard from students at the college at Brockport and took their concerns to the state. And Chris, what's leading to this week's student protests?
Well, Jen, two key reasons these students are doing this. One has to do with transparency. They want to know where their tuition money is going. Arielle Ingracia is the treasurer of SUNY Brockport Student Government. I showed her this picture of a house in Albany SUNY recently purchased for Chancellor Nancy Zimpher to use. The price was a reported $430,000. The median price of a house in Albany is about $160,000.
Different monies are probably allocated differently, but I do know that that money would probably be helpful on one of the SUNY campuses. On Friday at noon, Ingracia will be leading a walkout of classes at SUNY Brockport. They'll be protesting the SUNY 2020 plan, which calls for a $300 tuition increase every year. We're pretty much done with this $300 a year tuition raise, since it's clearly not going back to the students. It's going to, we don't know where. That's the issue. I asked SUNY officials directly about that issue through email. Brockport's student government claims too many tuition dollars have been going toward campus maintenance as opposed to expanding educational programs. I asked a SUNY spokesperson if that was true. I also asked if SUNY should have bought a less expensive house for the chancellor. I got an email back. None of my questions were directly answered. Instead, a spokesperson called for more state funding. You can see the entire response for yourself at WHEC.com. Chancellor Zimpher did say this to me last March.
If the students are willing to step up, and if we are willing as a system to tighten our belt and save money through shared services, the state has to be a partner in that equation.
That's something Ingracia agrees with. This money has to come from somewhere. We would prefer it to come from the state. That's the other point of this walkout. It's meant to be a message to Governor Cuomo that SUNY deserves more state money. Again, this walkout takes place on Friday, Jen.
Well, Chris, are any other schools participating in this walkout?
Yeah, Ingracia told me there are 9 total in the SUNY system, schools that will participate. She said this is an idea that started at SUNY New Paltz and has really taken off.
All right, Chris Horvitz, thank you for that report. Student loans continue to be a struggle for current and former students nationwide, with student loan debt in the United States toppling $1.3 trillion.
We are looking ahead to Super Tuesday tomorrow, when voters in 12 states head to the polls to cast primary votes in the race for the White House. It's the biggest day so far this election season. NBC's Steve Handelsman joins us with the preview.
Ted Cruz in Houston tonight, working not to be beaten in his home state tomorrow.
If you don't want to see Donald Trump as the nominee, if you don't want to see Hillary Clinton as the next president, then stand with us tomorrow on Super Tuesday.
He'd started in Dallas, then to San Antonio. Among Texans, Donald Trump is outpolled by Cruz.
He's not really a whiny Yankee New Yorker.
Trump got the backing of NASCAR drivers in Georgia, the second biggest Super Tuesday state.
Tomorrow's a big day, and I want Georgia, I want you to lead the pack. We're going to have a lot of success.
In Virginia, a protest and scuffles, and charges Trump as racist for not disavowing the KKK and David Duke on Sunday, like Trump did in 2000.
You've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem.
Marco Rubio was hitting 4 states and hitting Trump.
He's unelectable now. He refused to criticize the Ku Klux Klan.
Democrat Bernie Sanders in a state where, besides Vermont, he might have a shot.
We can win, no question, here in Minnesota, if we have a turnout.
Hillary Clinton in Virginia, eager, she said, to take on Trump.
Because at some point, you can't just say whatever pops into your head if you want to be the President of the United States of America.
She could win every Super Tuesday state but one, like Donald Trump might. Unless Trump can beat Cruz here in Texas and win them all. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Houston.
Make sure to join us tomorrow night on News 10 NBC at 11 for a complete recap of all your Super Tuesday results and reaction from the candidates.
New at 11, getting tougher on people who hurt the environment while committing another crime. This comes 6 years after a copper theft that sparked an oil spill in Greece. A bill sponsored by State Senator Joe Robach would hold criminals responsible for long-term environmental damage. It passed today in the state Senate. In 2010, we told you about a copper theft at RG&E's Russell station that led to a 4,800-gallon oil leak. Now, cleanup at a nearby land and creek cost $1 million. The bill now heads to the state assembly. Police continue to search for whoever broke into several cars in one Rochester neighborhood overnight. Neighbors say items were stolen out of at least 6 cars on Wilkins Street on the city's north side.
We all watch each other. What surprised me is that they got that many cars and none of us didn't see or hear a thing. That's what bothers me.
My window and his window was broke so the alarms wouldn't go off, so it's not somebody that would be just randomly going around hitting cars. They know what they're doing.
Police want to remind you not to keep valuables in your car, especially in plain sight. Anyone with information on these break-ins is asked to call 911.
Another year, another record set for state overtime. Every time there's an increase, it means more of your tax dollars are used to pay for it. According to a report by the State Controller's Office, one of the highest increases in overtime last year came from a department you might not expect. The Gaming Commission's overtime costs went up 34%, despite having more employees than last year. The commission oversees horse racing, casino gambling, and the lottery. We took those overtime numbers to a small business owner to get his perspective.
What would happen with your business if you had an increase in overtime of 34% year to year?
There would be some decisions to be made. We more than likely would go out of business.
In an email, a spokesperson for the Gaming Commission said, quote, overtime increases in 2015 were due to allocation of staff to temporarily fulfill our roles at few or new or expanded Indian gaming facilities and address sales representative coverage issues in various marketing regions.
Kevin's watching a storm that could bring a snow and icy mix to the area. He'll let you know when in his full forecast coming up.
Plus, a local woman on the national stage tonight. Find out how Abby Celso did in her audition on The Voice. Next.